Hey everyone, it's Steve from the garden. It's mid-October and the temperatures outside have now come down to the point where I can plant my garlic outside. Our daytime highs are getting to like the mid-50s, and that's just perfect for planting garlic here in my zone 5 area. So this year I have 7 varieties of garlic I'm going to be planting. So let's go ahead and take a look at those. I have all the garlic laid out here on the table, organized and ready for me to get going. So my 7 varieties are Metechi, Music, Chestnut Red, Georgian Fire, Amish Rockable, I got Russian Red, and Montana Giant, which I got from Kathleen. So thank you to Kathleen for that. So I laid down on a spreadsheet, what variety I'm going to be growing and how I'm going to organize them. So I got 30 of the Chestnut Red, 25 of the Music, 20 of Georgian Fire, 15 of Amish Rockable, 3 Russian Red, 3 Montana Giant, and 6 Metechi. So this is one of my beds on my main growing area. So you can see I just kind of organized them in the rows. And then I got 2, I'm going to call them cross bed rows versus the horizontal bed. And those were, I'll put like the Russian Red, Montana Giant, and the Metechi. As a quick recap of my 23 growing season for garlic, Chestnut Red by far produced the most large bulbs of garlic I had. And Music, which is known for making some big cloves, that was a close second. So you can see this is my largest Chestnut Red bulb, and this is my largest Music bulb here on your right. Both very good sized bulbs of garlic, but the Chestnut Red in overall size and the sheer number of them I got that were big was much better. Now Chestnut Red is my oldest garlic I've been growing from my own seed garlic. And so over the last 5 or 6 years it's been, it's just been getting better every year. So let's go ahead and get these separated. To get started, I'm just going to use one of the humidity domes from my 10 by 20 trays to help kind of contain the mess. To break these apart, I'm just using a knife to kind of cut through the divisions. And you can kind of feel where the divisions are in the bulb. And so I'm going to choose an area where it feels like there's a couple small ones in here. Like this one right here, I can see there's a couple small ones on this side. Not every clove inside the bulb is going to be big. So if I can get the small clove out and get that out of the way, like that. That's not a small clove, but compared to some of the other ones inside the bulb, it's smaller. Because once I get the first clove off, then it's much easier to just go through and separate these. And if I can get this bottom piece off by bringing the hard neck stem down and breaking that apart. Once I can break that off, then the rest of them come off, much easier. Now, as I peel each of these apart, I want to leave this papery skin on them. That way it kind of protects them as I go to plant them. And I'm only going to plant the very largest bulbs. So like some of these bulbs, are certainly not a bad size. I'm not going to plant these. I'll just keep these really large ones like this. This is the spot where I'm going to be planting the garlic. So we need to remove the ground cover. And this is an area where I planted buckwheat and covered that buckwheat with compost. So I haven't looked at it yet. So let's go ahead and take off these T-posts that hold it down. And we'll see what we have underneath. Okay, moment of truth. See what we got. So it looks pretty good actually. There's still a little bit of stubble in here from the buckwheat. And I need to remove the drip tape so that it doesn't get frozen over the winter time. But I think we'll be okay. I'll go through and smooth out all the compost I put on the top, and we'll get ready for planting. Before I go and actually start planting, I'm just going to lay down a little bit of balanced organic fertilizer, add just a little extra nutrients to the bed so that the garlic has kind of something they can get started with once it starts growing its first roots. Now my actual goal for this is not to have it grow any above ground vegetation, and just have it develop roots, and hopefully the weather cooperates the roots will grow, get established, and then the cold weather will put the garlic to sleep for the winter time. With the fertilizer down, I'm just going to use the back of the hard rake, kind of just work that in a little bit. I don't need to totally mix it in with everything, but that's why I mix it in a little bit here. I'm going to make a slight change to my original plan. And that originally I was going to do 6 rows, but I'm going to do 7 rows, and that way I don't have to go out quite as far on the bed to get those last 2 or last 3 varieties in. So I'm coming in 2 inches off the edge of the bed, and then I'm spacing each row 5 inches between each row, and I'm going to go 5 inches between each clove within the row. So I put some screws here on the end of the bed. They were spaced out the way I'd want them. With the fertilizer worked in, you can see I got a string here that acts as my guide for the row. I got my tape measure set up here. So I'm going to start the first one on the end here at 3 inches, and I'm going to go on the inside of the string. And I'm just going to push that down so like the tip is about, roughly an inch, inch and a half below the soil. And when I start the second row, which will be here, I'm going to offset that. So the second row will start at like 5 inches. And that way it just gives a little extra room for the bulbs here on these end rows. So there's my first bulb, or my first clove of garlic. And I can go 5 inches in from that one. And go to 10 inches here for the next one. I am planting this with the flat side down, and the pointy end goes up to the top. With the first row completed, so now I'm going to go ahead and offset this second row by 5 inches instead of the 3. And I'll put that clove right in at 5 inches. Slide that over. And then I can go every 5 inches after that. All the garlic is planted now, and I have it all covered up. I put some wooden markers down there on the end. That's to let me know where the garlic stops and where the onions can be planted, since onions are going to go on the back side of this bed. The next step now is to go ahead and put some wood chip mulch on top of all the garlic. It's to help provide it a little bit of insulation during the winter time, help retain moisture, and keep down the weeds. Since garlic is in for such a long time, if you don't go and protect it and try to keep all those weeds out, then they will definitely grow into all your garlic. So try to get a good 2 to 3 inches at least down on top of this. That should do really well for keeping down the weeds and all those other benefits I mentioned. In years past, I've always used cypress mulch for doing this, but the store is out of that today, so I just got this stuff that's brown. Should work just fine. And then over the winter time, and then into the spring, some of this material will end up breaking down and just kind of enhancing the soil. And the garlic can definitely push up right through this stuff. It's got a pretty strong top growth on it, where it can come up through the mulch and then just continue growing. Alright, looks like I got a little more here than I really needed, so I'll just spread this down to the end of the bed and keep that protected too. Okay, the mulch is all laid down and this bed is ready. As you can see, we're now back inside. My neighbor started doing some work in his yard. It was making a bunch of noise, so I came inside to finish this up. So with the mulch in place, the garlic all planted, I really don't have to do much of anything with the garlic until springtime. The mulch will keep the weeds out and keep the soil moist through the winter time. And then our spring is usually, fairly wet most of the time. So I won't really have to do much until spring. And then once I see the vegetation starting to poke up through the mulch, that's when I'll do another fertilizing. Again, with some balanced organic fertilizer. and maybe with a little bit of extra blood meal in there to add just a little bit of extra nitrogen to it. In mid-May, once danger of frost is past, I will lay out my drip system to keep it watered, through mid-spring to the summertime when I harvest it. And here in my Zone 5 Chicago area, or outside Chicago. Now, when exactly I harvest just depends on the variety. Some varieties mature a little bit sooner than others. For example, this year Music was ready right around July 4th, and Chestnut Red was ready at the end of July. Metucci kind of fell right in between. Now, I am adding 4 new varieties this year, so I don't know when they're going to mature necessarily. We'll just have to see as harvest time gets close and look for signs from the plants themselves. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and leave a comment down below and I'll do my best to answer them. Or if you're growing garlics this fall, let me know what varieties you're growing and where you're located at. And until next time, I hope you enjoyed, got something out of this, and we'll see you on the next one. Just a quick side note for anybody that's still here. So this is my ginger. I brought it inside and I'll be harvesting this in the next couple weeks. And then the hydroponic lettuce, you can see now it's getting big enough and I'll need to really thin this out. This is now like 6 days since I planted the seeds.